You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. All the great sages, such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa, confirm this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. Purport. In these two verses, the Supreme Lord gives a chance to the modern philosopher, for here it is clear that the Supreme is different from the individual soul. Arjuna, after hearing the essential 4 verses of Bhagavad Gita in this chapter, became completely free from all doubts and accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He at once boldly declares, "You are Param Brahma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead." And previously Krishna stated that he is the originator of everything and everyone. Every demigod and every human being is dependent on him. Men and demigods, out of ignorance, think that they are absolute and independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That ignorance is removed perfectly by the discharge of devotional service. This has already been explained in the previous verse by the Lord. Now by his grace, Arjuna is accepting him as the supreme truth, in concordance with the Vedic injunction. It is not that because Krishna is Arjuna's intimate friend, Arjuna is flattering him by calling him the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth. Whatever Arjuna says in these 2 verses is confirmed by Vedic truth. Vedic injunctions affirm that only one who takes the devotional service to the Supreme Lord can understand him, whereas others cannot. Each and every word of this verse spoken by Arjuna is confirmed by Vedic injunction. In the Kena Upanishad it is stated that the Supreme Brahman is the rest for everything, and Krishna has already explained that everything is resting on him. The Mundaka Upanishad confirms that the Supreme Lord, in whom everything is resting, can be realized only by those who engage constantly in thinking of him. This constant thinking of Krishna is smarana, one of the methods of devotional service. It is only by devotional service to Krishna that one can understand his position and get rid of this material body. In the Vedas, the Supreme Lord is accepted as the purest of the pure. One who understands that Krishna is the purest of the pure can become purified from all sinful activities. One cannot be disinfected from sinful activities unless he surrenders unto the Supreme Lord. Arjuna's acceptance of Krishna as the Supreme Pure complies with the injunctions of Vedic literature. This is also confirmed by great personalities, of whom Narada is the chief. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one should always meditate upon him and enjoy one's transcendental relationship with him. He is the supreme existence. He is free from bodily needs, birth and death. Not only does Arjuna confirm this, but all the Vedic literatures, the Puranas and histories. In all Vedic literatures, Krishna is thus described. And the Supreme Lord himself also says in the 4th chapter, "Although I am unborn, I appear on this earth to establish religious principles." He is the supreme origin. He has no cause, for he is the cause of all causes, and everything is emanating from him. This perfect knowledge can be had by the grace of the Supreme Lord. Here Arjuna expresses himself through the grace of Krishna. If we want to understand Bhagavad Gita, we should accept these statements of these 2 verses. In these 2 verses. This is called the Parampara system, acceptance of the disciplic succession. Unless one is in the disciplic succession, he cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. It is not possible by so-called academic education. Unfortunately, those proud of their academic education, despite so much evidence in Vedic literatures, stick to their obstinate conviction that Krishna is an ordinary person. Arjuna Vacha, Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Madi Devmasham Gavum Ahustam Nashaya Sarve Devarshir Naradas Tata Asita Devala Vyasa Swayam Chaiva Bhavishime. Arjuna said, You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. All the great sages, such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa, confirm this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. So, Arjuna has heard in this 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita many things from Krishna, including how he, Krishna, will supply within the heart of that particular conditioned living entity who very much wants to surrender to him the knowledge required by which he can do so, by which he can go home back to God. So the Supreme Lord explained his merciful nature to Arjuna. Now, this was after having heard 9 full chapters of information from Krishna about the material nature, about the living entity, about karma, about work, action, reaction. So many things were described. The whole yoga system in chapter 6. Opulences of the absolute truth were described. So many things are there. Krishna explained to Arjuna many, many things. But at the end of all these things, Krishna explained his merciful nature to Arjuna, explaining how if even somebody is not so intelligent, may not understand very much about spiritual life, but if he's devoted and sincere and steady, continuing his spiritual practice despite all kinds of disturbances, then Krishna says, if he's lacking in that knowledge, I give it to him by destroying with the lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance within the heart of such a sincere soul. Arjuna, after having heard all of this, and especially the statements of Krishna's merciful nature, he declares here at the end, these previous 4 verses are considered to be the key verses in Bhagavad Gita, because what they say is basically, you surrender to Krishna and Krishna helps you in all kinds of ways. So, Arjuna starts to praise Krishna in different ways. Now when Arjuna is praising Krishna, what he's actually doing is admitting that I accept you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Arjuna's acceptance is not an ordinary thing. It's not something which is whimsical. It is taking place after having heard in great detail all varieties of information about the nature of Krishna. So Arjuna's acceptance came from his own heart. He realized, he understood. It is like this. He knew it in truth. However, just so that no one would think that this is just some kind of whimsical understanding, because although Arjuna understood Krishna's position after a lot of discussion and realization, still, just to confirm it, Arjuna said to Krishna, Ahustam Rishaya Sarve Devarshir Nardastata Asito Devala Vyasa Swayam Chaivam Bhavishan. Not only I am saying this, because after all, someone may say, well, who is Arjuna anyway? He's a warrior. How's he going to know anything about these spiritual things? So he says, well, not only I know, but this has been stated in the past by many rishis, like Asita, Devala, Vyasadev. These are all big, big rishis. Narada Muni. They have all stated the same truth that you have stated to me. Arjuna says, not only you are telling me this, not only have I realized this, but all great sages and saintly persons in the past, they have also understood this point and have also stated it as well. And you'll find this in various Vedic literature, how the sages and saintly personalities all confirm the Vedic version. Like Prabhupada often describes how he says, big acharyas, Madhvacharya, Sridhar Swami, Ramanujacharya, Viragavacharya, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, so many big acharyas who have commented on Srimad Bhagavatam. They all are saying the same thing. It is not our own opinion. What we have here is authorized, bona fide knowledge which is coming down in the eternal disciplic succession since time immemorial. We are dealing here with substance, factual substance. This is also described in the Bhagavatam. Dharma projitakaitavocha paramoni matsaranam satam vejam vastavam atra vastu shivaram tapatrayam mulanam. Vastu means substance, the stuff of existence. Everything is an existing thing. That's called vastu. Vastu means something which exists. You're talking about something. If you're going to talk about something, then it exists. Because simply by talking about it, it exists. It exists at least as a concept. Vastu. So, even when you talk about the non-existent comes into existence in terms of the concept of non-existence. So it is also a thing. But when you want to talk about some substance which is non-existent, you can't. Because it doesn't exist. Therefore it has no vastu. That which no vastu cannot be discussed. Anyway, this is just the logical construct of an argument against the Mayavadi philosophy. But anyway, now that we've lost everybody completely, we'll bring you all back. So, this knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam is substantial. It separates the substance of reality from illusion. Illusion is there. Everybody's in illusion. Everything is part of that illusion, so long as one is not Krishna conscious. And the Bhagavatam's purpose is to separate the reality and the illusion. That which is illusion stays in the realm of Maya, is understood as Maya, but it is not meditated upon by the devotees. And that which is real substance, that is accepted by the devotees. What Arjuna is saying here, that this real substance of existence, which is confirmed by all of the great sages and saintly personalities, and which also uproots, the Bhagavatam again, uproots the miserable conditions of the modes of material nature. It is very auspicious. Shivanam, very auspicious, because it uproots the existence of the three modes of material nature. So, we find here, Arjuna starts to explain some of the qualities of Krishna. Param Brahman. Param, this word will be used many times by Arjuna. Param means the supreme. In this case, sometimes Param means the next greater. But since Krishna is already greater than the greatest, when you say something about him which is greater than the next, that means it's the supreme, because there's nobody else higher. In any way, the word Param means supreme. No matter how you define Param, you've got the supreme personality of God there. Anyway, Param Brahma. Brahma refers to truth. Just like we say, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaya. That means that the original knowledge was taught to Brahma in the heart. In this case, Adikavi refers to Brahma, and Brahma refers to knowledge. So Tene Brahma Hridaya means the knowledge was put in the heart of Adikavi, the original poetic person, another name for Brahma. Because he's the first personality, learned personality in the universe. So Param Brahma. Brahma refers to knowledge, or truth, or that which is the eternal existence, that which is Sat, eternal, called Brahma. We also speak in terms of Brahman. That is also Brahman. Brahman refers to that emanation, effulgence from the Supreme Lord, or, put another way, all of the energies which emanate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are all in the category of Brahman. Everything which comes from Krishna is Brahma, because he is the supreme source of everything, all of the spiritual energy, material energy. So whatever comes from him is also Brahma, because he's Param Brahma. In other words, Krishna is being called Param Brahma by Arjuna because everything comes from Krishna. And because Krishna himself is spiritual, supreme, absolute, everything that comes from him is Brahman. Because he is the source, he is Param Brahma. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, everything that is in existence is Brahma, because it all comes from Krishna, Param Brahma. Next, Param Dhamma, supreme sustenance or abode. In other words, Dhamma refers to that substance again that we were discussing. That one in whom everything rests. Param Dham. Everything rests within Krishna. He is the support of the entirety of existence. Therefore he's called Supreme Abode. Pavitram. Pavitram Paramam. The supreme pure. There are so many purification agencies, purifying agents. It's like water is one of them. For cotton, if you wash cotton in water, it becomes purified. If you don't even have to wash other substances. Some of them are purified in the sun. Some of them are purified by shaking. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you too much about that. You should also wash them too. So anyway, there are different purifying agencies. A quick rundown would be water purifies, sun purifies, even filthy things are all dried up and purified by the sun. Things are purified in the earth by decomposition. They turn to earth themselves. Things are purified by air. Sometimes you put something in the air. If you have something which is stinky because of some smoke or something, if you just put it in the air, then it becomes purified. Some things are purified in certain motions. So you have different forms of purification processes. And different places may be more pure than other places. Some places may be purer than other places. But of all pure things, the purest of all pure is Krishna. Therefore, we find he's also called Shuddham, the purest, and Apapa Vidam, uncontaminable. He can never become contaminated by anything else. Because he is the purest. If you enter into the association of Krishna, you become purified. He does not become contaminated. That is the wonderful thing about Krishna. He's so pure that he'll purify even the most contaminated personality if that personality sincerely tries to take shelter of him. Because Krishna is the purest. He's uncontaminable. Whenever we associate with him, we become purified. Just like the sun is so powerful, you can't contaminate the sun. You can put piles of stool somewhere. Give the sun sufficient time and enough sunny days, and that whole pile will become purified. Actually, the whole earth is made of the dead bodies of creatures. In the very interesting point, you might be interested, that in the Vedic astronomical sciences, there's a description of how to find the diameter of the earth. A formula, how you find the diameter of the earth. But part of the formula is that you have to know what age you are living in. Because according to the years, according to the ages, how many yugas you are, you have to add a certain factor. Because all of the dead bodies build up the surface of the earth. All the plants, all the animals, all the people, everything that's dying, continually places newer and newer substances in the earth. Because this matter is being created by the living being, not that it is, you have some constant factor of matter. No. Organic matter is being created and newer substances, and the whole mass of the earth is increasing. Very interesting point. In any case, we find that Krishna is purifying all of that through the sun. And the sun itself is always the same pure agent. He's never contaminated. No matter where the sun shines, the sun himself is so far beyond all of that. He's never contaminated. So Krishna is never contaminated by anything of this world, any aspect of the modes of nature, or any contaminated thing in this world. Krishna is far beyond all of that. Therefore, he's the supreme pure of all pures. Paramam bhavan purusham shasvatam divyam adidevam. Now, Krishna is Purusha. Although he is the supreme, and although in all different ways he is the greatest personality, he is still a person. But he's Purusha Chashrita Divyam, the original transcendental person. He's original. He is the supreme, original, transcendental personality. And there is no one who is superior to him. He's Adidevam. Adidevam means the original God. There are so many demigods. But Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, Aham Adirhi Devanam. I am the source of all of these demigods. Krishna is the origin, and everyone else is the emanation. Everything else is an emanation. He's Ajam Vibhum, unborn and the greatest personality. As we mentioned last night, we were talking about this verse, Ajopi son of Yayat Mabhutanam Ishwaropi son. Krishna is unborn, and his transcendental body never deteriorates. And he is the Lord of all sentient beings. But although he is so, he still will appear now and then in this material world for the sake of all of us. Although he is Vibhu, the greatest, and although we are Anu, the smallest, still Krishna will appear amongst us as if he was one of us sometimes. Of course, he never actually acts as if he's one of us. But he puts on a show to play like the part of a human being. But he does things which can never be even thought of. Inconceivably wonderful things. Just like Arjuna you will find in some verses, he will apologize to Krishna. He will say, so many times in the past I have acted as if you were an ordinary personality. But I was fool number one. But later on, Arjuna will ask Krishna, please show your universal form. After all, there may be so many who proclaim that they are God. Yeah. And whenever somebody says he's God, you say, okay, God, please show me your universal form. Then they cannot show you anything. They cannot show you anything unless it's already in their pocket. Beyond that, they cannot show you. But if you're asking, oh God, you please show something here. Some universal form. Oh, you can't make a universal form. But make anything fantastic. Nothing you can make. Then what is the use of you, oh so-called God? Get out of here. Arjuna, he knew there'd be so many skeptical persons who would say, yeah, sure, Krishna's God. We've heard this before. So Arjuna said, all right, my dear Lord Krishna, I know that you are the Supreme. I don't require any more evidence than this. Because in the 10th chapter already, Arjuna is saying, I know, I understand. You're the absolute truth. That's all there is to it. But he said, just for the sake of those who are less intelligent, or just to show a good example, when other personalities, ordinary personalities, try to proclaim themselves as the Supreme, can you please show me your universal form? And this was recorded here in Bhagavad Gita in the 11th chapter. That wonderful, magnificent, all-powerful, all-pervading universal form was displayed by Krishna with its thousands of faces and thousands of arms and mouths and ferocious appearance in such a bewildering, mind-boggling array of unlimited opulence. Krishna, he displayed to Arjuna that universal form and laid to rest forever the doubt whether or not he is the Supreme Personality of God. No other personality in the history could ever display such things. Nobody ever has, nobody ever will, except Krishna. You may have so many bogus incarnations, so-called incarnations of God, people who proclaim themselves the Supreme. None of them has ever showed anybody the universal form. And you can challenge like that. Please show me your universal form. Then they will say, well, you do not have the eyes to see, therefore I do not show you. And you can say, but if you are God, you give me the eyes to see. After all, Krishna did to Arjuna. So you give me the eyes. Then they will say, but you are not my devotee. Anyway, they're cheating. So, in this Krishna consciousness, we accept Krishna because, number one, he displayed the characteristics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Number two, we can realize his position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Number three, Arjuna realized. Number four, and all great sages, acharyas, saintly personalities, they have confirmed Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. So, we find that Arjuna made a very clear distinction between himself and Krishna. Arjuna did not come to the conclusion at the end that he was Krishna, or he was God, or he was the Supreme. He said very clearly, you are the Supreme. He glorified Krishna. It is not that, like sometimes we find, we flatter people. You flatter somebody telling them all good qualities about him, and then wait for him to tell you back all good qualities about yourself. You might say, ordinary man might say to somebody, "Oh, you're so good." Then he waits. And the other one will say, "Oh, you're so good." Then they become a mutual admiration society. Society where everybody tells the other how wonderful he is. So it is not that Arjuna was expecting to become part of some mutual admiration society. No, he knew that Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality, and he is worthy of worship, and all prayers should be offered to him. And Arjuna expected nothing in return. This is actually pure love. When someone is engaged in developing his love for Krishna, the first qualification when one is actually coming to the higher platform is he expects nothing in return. Lord Chaitanya described this in his Shikshashtaka prayers, final verse. Ashlishiva pararatam kinashtumam darshanam amahatam korotu va itatatahi vididatu lampatoma prananatastu sa eva na puraha. He said, "You, Krishna, are my Lord eternally. Even if you make me broken-hearted by not appearing before me, even if you crush me in your embrace, I will accept you always as my most worshipable Lord eternally." It is not that the one who has pure love of Krishna is fruitive, that he will love Krishna, but if Krishna is not there, after a while he'll forget about him and think about somebody else. He can never forget the spiritual master of Krishna, pure lover of spiritual master of Krishna. Can never, just because even if there's not physical proximity, then he forgets. Out of sight, out of mind. That is a problem in the material world. Sometimes we think like that. If something is out of our vision, we forget about it. But when one actually has developed some loving relationship of servitorship with spiritual master Krishna, he never forgets them, even if they are out of sight temporarily. Sometimes Krishna just simply chooses not to be before his devotee. Like, of course, this is highly elevated business, but when Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Mathura and Dwarka, he was not present before the gopis. And they were mad in separation of love of Godhead from him, but they didn't forget him. It's not like they said, "Well, he's not going to come here anymore, so we'll just take somebody else to love." There was no question of that. They couldn't even have thought of such a thing. Although sometimes they said, "What is the use of remembering this Krishna? All we get is pain out of this." And although we get so much pain, the more pain we feel, the more we think of Krishna. And although we are so disturbed that this Krishna has gone away from us and left us here, he is certainly a cheater. Just gone and accepted these high society girls in Dwarka and don't care about us anymore. But all we can do is think of him more. The gopis, you see, were addicted. They couldn't think of anything else but Krishna. Even when they were chastising him for not being there, they were thinking about him. Every minute of every day, of every moment of their lives. And at the end, they became so mad they couldn't even function anymore. They were simply just thinking of Krishna continuously, constantly, non-stop, even though he had gone away for a long time. Very long time. He was away. He was away from them. He was off in Dwarka performing his pastime. And Krishna also never forgot his devotees. He once wrote them a letter, the gopis. But his hand was shaking so much out of love, he could not write clearly the letter. And Uddhava was reading this letter, but Uddhava thought it best not to show the letter. Because if the gopis saw that shaking handwriting like this, they would all become just hysterical. Therefore he just read it. And Krishna said, my dear gopis, you should know it for certain, there is no separation between us at any time. That there's no separation between the living entity and Krishna. It is simply a question of Maya. And the gopis were far beyond the platform of being in Maya. There was no question of separation. Eternally, they are together. Krishna said, there is no way I can repay you for your devotion. So please be simply satisfied with your service. Actually, this is very nice because if Krishna had asked them, please you accept some gift here. You've been my nice devotees. Okay, here you take a gift. Some nice diamond ring or something. Gopis would have been very insulted. They would have thrown it on the floor. Said, keep your gift. We're not businessmen. We don't love you for getting something. We are not mundane women of the material world who are simply interested in wealth or fame. We are your eternal servants. We don't accept this. And therefore Krishna, out of great respect for the gopis, said, I cannot repay you. There's nothing so valuable as your love that it can be repaid by some material thing. Therefore, Krishna said, you simply be satisfied with your service alone. That is real love. Even though he was not before the gopis, he was far away. They could not forget each other. Always were thinking. But Krishna had his pastimes to perform, his mission to perform, for reducing the burden of the defense forces on this planet. Therefore, he went to Dwarka to fulfill that mission too. And the whole battle of Kurukshetra had to be organized, and so many things had to be done. So, pure devotee always has Krishna in his heart, and Krishna always thinks of that pure devotee. When one is always thinking of Krishna, Krishna naturally is always thinking of that person. We should never think, oh, but there are so many devotees. Krishna has so many devotees to think about. And how is he ever going to think about me? But Krishna is unlimited. He can think about you and everybody else too at the same time. And he does all the time. It's not a problem. For you it's a problem to think about yourself and anybody else simultaneously. For Krishna it's no problem to think about everybody else simultaneously. Everybody everywhere. Because he's unlimited. He's infinite. There's no limit. So the more we serve him, worship him, surrender to him, the more we try to please him, the more we come in contact with Krishna. The more we think of Krishna, the more he thinks of us, and this relationship of love becomes very, very nice. So we should never feel alone like this. We should always feel there's a great friend, the greatest friend, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's always ready to help us. Always ready to help us, always ready to offer his love. In return, all we should do is serve him, that's all. Serve him with all our heart and soul. Because that is the symptom of our love. If you say you love somebody and you never serve them, never do anything for them, then there's no love. We demonstrate our love for Krishna by serving him. We never try to take the artificial position that, oh, I love God, like some people say. But they never talk about him, they don't know his name even, they don't know what he does, they don't care. They're simply interested in their own lives, and they think, yes, I love God, in the end I go to heaven. Such a childish idea may make one feel quite comfortable, but unfortunately it's a false shelter, durashaya. If you're depending on that at the time of death, you're in for a shock. And you're not going to be very happy about it. So, if you love Krishna, then you have to show it by service. And he who's always serving Krishna, always absorbed in chanting his name and remembering Him and always engaged with body, mind, words dedicated to Him, that personality is demonstrating his love for Krishna. So, that is what we should do. Understand Krishna and serve Krishna. With all love, all devotion, all dedication. Then we'll actually become very Krishna conscious and quite happy too. Are there any questions? Yes?
You just said that we should see Krishna as a big friend. Because in the beginning you said that Krishna is Param Brahma, so big, so infinite, so that's very hard.
There is awe and reverence, and then there is friendship. Awe and reverence is the way to think of Krishna if you are a devotee of Vishnu in the Vaikuntha Lokas. Friendship is the way you can think of Krishna when you are in the higher relationships. In any way, everybody can think of Krishna as a friend because he's in our heart as a best-wishing friend. Even if you are Vaikuntha Loka Baba, you can worship Krishna within the heart, and he acts like a friend there. But just like Arjuna, he was acting towards Krishna as friend, but then he realized Krishna is Supreme Brahman, Supreme Love. That is what Arjuna is saying right here now. He's realizing that actually Krishna is not just some friend, he's the Supreme Absolute Truth. I guess we'll explain that more tomorrow. No. Yes?
Ich habe hier listening in the spiritual Welt zusammen after the spiritual Meister.
Maybe spiritual master may have to be preaching in the material universe. He may just leave you there and go on with the preaching business. Otherwise, spiritual master will also be there.
If there's any connection between the place where you live in and the place where you serve Krishna, I mean, that you try to surrender. But the point of karma, I mean, we are not born in some different place in the world by accident. It must be some. And what kind of connection is?
No connection.
No.
Otherwise, I'd still be in New York City. Place of birth has got no value. We generally think of it as bona ijiti, worshipful place of birth. We have these feelings. Switzerland. America. We think of these places as very big. Actually, it's just a pile of earth which somebody put a label on. There's no eternal existence called Yugoslavia. Thank God. It's just a pile of rocks upon which some earth has fallen. Yeah. And you have taken your birth there by your karma. But now you are canceling your karma, cutting it. You're not bound. You're not bound to the place of your birth. After all, what benefit you get there? Place of your birth. I can't think of any benefit of the place of my birth. Not in the slightest. This is just all called bodily identification. And it is headed up by this feeling that the place of birth is worshipful. But actually it is not. It's just another place of all places. No value. You're not bound there. You can go anytime you like. And you did, see? So you're not bound.
Yes, I feel guilty.
You feel guilty? Oh, that's material. Why you should feel guilty? You're serving Krishna.
But I think that I should stay there.
Probably because the devotees there are making you feel guilty.
Oh.
They are experts. That does not mean to say you should not go back and preach. But anyway, don't feel guilty. Krishna consciousness movement is not for feeling guilty. Wherever you are serving Krishna, that's very nice. And then when the time comes, when you are sufficiently enlightened in Krishna consciousness, and you have great strength, then you go back there and make thousands of people Krishna conscious. Why not? Yes.
Can you say something about the three stages, Devananda, Sutta?
They are more from the Vedic age, and we don't have that much description of them, although we do know that they are very old sages. They are also there at special occasions, but more than that, not much is known. So little was known about them that in the first edition of Bhagavad Gita they called them one person, Asita Devala. With a line between them. You couldn't figure out who they were. But actually there are two sages. One is Asita, one is Devala.
In Srimad Bhagavatam it said that the white incarnation appeared before Kagama Muni to give him the blessing that he receives him as his son Kapila. So who is this white incarnation?
So one is white, one is red, one is blackish, one is yellow. So the white incarnation has appeared as Lord Kapila Dev. The white incarnation who appeared to Kardama Muni, his name was Hamsa. Hamsa Avatar. Hamsa means swan. Swan is white. He was the color of the swan. But he took birth as the son of Kardama Muni. And Kardama Muni Kapila Dev gave all the instructions to establish the principles of Samkhya Yoga. Red incarnation was Yogya. He appeared as a brahmachari with red color, holding a pot and brahmachari staff, water pot, kamandu, and brahmachari staff with matted locks. Matted locks, in case you don't know what it means, generally people don't know what it means. It means you have very long hair. Then you take some stuff, which is like beeswax, and then you mat all the hair together with this, so it becomes just solid. That way you don't have to worry about it. It's austerity, it's not meant for pleasure. It is not that you have nice soft flowing hair on your shoulders and this is very pleasurable. It is an austerity, it's meant for just getting the hair out of the way. Some yogis, when they're meditating, they are meditating so long in the same spot, hundreds of years, and they don't move, that their hair grows so long it covers them completely. It goes all the way down to the ground. It makes a big, huge pile around them. And their nails also grow out that long. They get so skinny, they're just a bag of bones with air suspended in it. They don't even breathe anymore. They're just suspending the incoming air and the outgoing air right here in the base of the throat. And this is called the Vishuddha Chakra. The Vishuddha Chakra is right here. So this air coming in and going out is captured right here at the base of the throat. And it's suspended so that there's no more breathing in or out anymore. And that means the metabolism is suspended, because this is also the base of the metabolism. Material scientists also would understand this to a certain extent. The thyroid gland is there, which controls metabolism. So each chakra controls a particular gland. So by controlling the activity of the chakra, you can control the bodily functions. So they slow the metabolism down to nothing, or almost nothing, just enough to keep the body going. Therefore some growth is there in the hair and the nails, which grow even in dead bodies. So the yogi, he suspends like that and stays for hundreds of years in this position. Such an austerity. Yogya Brahmachari, the incarnation of the Lord, brought that. So that these people nowadays, they talk about doing yoga, they're all bogus. as soon as you mention what real yoga is, they just completely, their eyeballs go up 10 yards and their mouth drops to the floor. In Buenos Aires, there's a whole group of yoga followers there, some yogic group. So when I explained to them actually what yoga means, then they realized that what they were doing was not very valuable. If you meditate some 10, 20, 30 minutes a day, then it turns out to be simply the nice bodily function. You become very healthy, get skinny body. Mainly for older ladies who are getting chubby. So they do this yoga, they lift the leg this way, that way, to some music. You go to the yoga schools, it's mainly for older ladies, like in the 40s, When all the ladies, they start worrying very much because they're over 40, they're thinking their life is practically finished. They go to all these rejuvenation places, the thermal baths, the mud packs, the yoga schools. Basically, that's what it's become. It's become part of a beauty treatment. You're never going to realize the Supreme that way. Not in the slightest.
If Krishna knows about the past, the present, and the future, and where does our individuality come in the future?
Yes, let us say, if I give you some food, I know you're going to eat it. Does that mean I'm making you eat it? No, I simply know you're going to eat it. If I know after this class, unfortunately, you're going to get up and walk away, because we would like you to stay. But if I know that, that doesn't mean that I'm making you walk away. Just knowing something does not make it happen. It simply means you know. You have knowledge of what will take place. So Krishna knows everything that will take place, but it does not mean he makes it happen. You make it happen. But he just knows that it will.
Then why did he create us in the first place?
You're eternal. You're not created. You come here to the material world because you want to enjoy, just like the Supreme. You've taken a position where you want to be the individual, independent enjoyer and controller in this material world. When we come here, we all have this feeling. Not just you, all of us. So, we are put in this world because this place is a very good place to live out that myth that we are the enjoyers and controllers. It's like a great sandbox that you put your children in so they play and they don't make trouble for you. With walls around it. So Krishna has given us this playground. And we are busy in the sandbox, moving sand here and there, sometimes hitting our fellow children on the head with a shovel, sometimes eating sand, doing stupid things. So we are playing in this playground of the material nature, because Krishna put us here to fulfill our desires. And after a while of playing in this material place, we realize this is no nice place. This place stinks. Then at that time, we become a little frustrated in this material world, and then we think, why am I here? What am I doing here anyway? We ask questions like the one you just asked. And at that time, Krishna, being very merciful upon us, sends us to a spiritual master, or sends a spiritual master to us. And at that time he answers the question, why am I here? And what am I supposed to do with this life? And what I'm supposed to do with this life, I'm supposed to get out of the material world and go back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, the process of chanting, Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
is given just so that you can go back home, back to Godhead.
So does the individual soul still have desires, even while serving Krishna?
Yes, he has desires, but they're spiritual desires. He may have individual material desires because of contamination, but we're talking now about an advanced personality. He has spiritual desires, and those desires are to satisfy Krishna by his devotional service.
In the spiritual world, also does the individual soul have desire?
Yes, and that's the problem, because we, individual souls, had desire that why Krishna should be the enjoyer and controller, why not us? So we've left the spiritual atmosphere.
So even
We have freedom, that means. I'm going to answer your next question. We have freedom, we have independence, we have our own individual will, we can do what we want. We can reject Krishna if we want, we can love Krishna if we want. Because if we didn't have that freedom, then there would be no meaning to the love of Krishna. If we had no freedom, we had to love Krishna, there was no other choice, then that's not love, is it? That's fascism. Krishna's no fascist. He gives you freedom. You can love me or not, it's up to you. So the choice, the independence is there. That's our only independence. You can misuse it if you want. You can use it nice if you want. We're here because we misused it. We took this choice, the wrong one. So now we have to take the right choice. Surrender to Krishna.
So if service to Krishna is such bliss, then why would we want to reject him in the first place?
Because even if you're in a blissful condition, if you become envious, that bliss is immediately stopped. It's a direct function of the soul. You know what a function is? It's something which is intrinsic in the soul. To love Krishna, or, although it's a harsh word, it's true, hate Krishna, is all possible for the soul. And the why is very, very difficult to understand. But it can be understood, just like sometimes you meet somebody and you just don't like that person. In fact, sometimes you just hate a person. Envy. You're envious of another person. Why? Even if you know, anyway, whatever opulence he has more than me, what's the difference? But still, there's just some enviousness there. Why? It just manifests from the heart due to contamination. It's directly spiritual. It's right at the core of our existence. To love or hate. It is not something you can analyze on the platform of the intellect. It's really deep. It is the basic element of our spiritual existence, to love or to hate. You can ask why, but the why is because we are marginal. We are tiny. We are small. We have this choice. We can be either under the material energy or the spiritual energy. And if we by chance misuse that choice, if by chance, it's not a question of misusing a choice like a whimsical decision. What it really is that the soul just gets envious of Krishna, and boom, falls down. So this is something you learn by realization. Even if when one is a devotee, and he's very blissful in his service, all of a sudden something little may happen, and he just becomes envious. You've had experience sometimes? Of course you have. And if you say you don't, you're a liar. Okay, let's get something straight. So, everybody has this experience. All of a sudden, just, envy hits. How? It just is in the heart. It's a contamination. It's in the heart. One has to root it out like a weed with a root in the ground. You can't just snip the weed. You have to get it out. Yeah. Farm examples. Those are the examples. So, getting out this desire in the heart, this is the whole point of the spiritual process of Krishna consciousness. But
if or when you're serving Krishna and you're in total bliss, you are still indirectly contaminated because you can always fall down.
No, you can develop the contamination. No, it's not a contamination, it's a spiritual desire. that original desire is spiritual. It's not a contamination until you fall. But once you have that hatred, you must fall.
But then it must always be there, surely.
Yes, it's always there. It's always there. Yes.
Otherwise you couldn't fall.
That's right. It's always there. However, once you return to the spiritual world, you'll never, ever make that mistake again. Never. Because you experienced the bliss of the material world, and you'll never, ever, ever make that mistake again, no matter what. You've got one chance to make that mistake, and you'll never do it again. At least that's encouraging, isn't it? All right, Hare Krishna.